Number 1230. We have met since 1921 through wars, famine, pandemics, and all sorts of pain and pestilence in the world. And what we specialize here is exciting travelers who go off the beaten path. Nobody represents that better than my guest tonight, Paulo Ferro.
Well, thanks. I'm honored. I'm honored, and don't let them fool you. I'm the least interesting person in this.
I think you're pretty darn interesting. So let's talk about where you grew up. So you know, I know you from Los Angeles, but you grew up in a couple of different places.
Right. So I grew up in Portugal. I was in Mozambique for a few years. I went back to Portugal, came to Boston, spent some time in Israel, came back to Boston, was some time in Saudi Arabia, and then California.
Okay, so a world traveler for sure.
Yes.
Tell me about growing up. I remember you telling me some stories about all your friends were playing soccer, and that was not really what was captivating you. What was captivating you?
The water. So all the kids would go to the beach and play soccer, and the parents would be at peace, knowing that all the kids were in the sand. And I'd take my fins and my mask and spend a few hours out in the water. So I've been doing that since then.
Alone?
Alone.
Which defies the sort of buddy system that we know.
Yes. So I don't always dive alone, but I'd say that 80% of the time I dive alone. It's a function of not finding anyone that has the same type of schedule, interest that I do. Not a lot of people like to do that. So
now, you once told me that by the time you could walk, you could dive.
Well, I exaggerated. So
okay. So when did you start diving?
My father taught me how to swim when I was 3, and immediately after I was using fins and a mask in a swimming pool. And in the summers, I just do what I do, and my father would be playing soccer as well with his friends, and I'd be out in the water.
And are you free diving? You're not using any supplemental oxygen, correct?
Correct. I started scuba diving in 1978, but until then I was free diving. So I started snorkeling, and I learned how to free dive. And
how deep did you dive?
Well, I can catch a fish at 30 meters, about 100.
30 meters, 90 feet, 100 feet?
Yeah.
At what age?
Oh. Perhaps at 18 I could do that.
So that's a little unusual.
No, not really. You'd find a lot of people that can do that.
But not a lot of my friends can do that.
You know, it's a matter of your environment. You go to places where people dive. It's not unusual for people to do that.
So were you like were you like a pearl diver or no?
No.
You're diving for abalone, for what?
I used to spearfish. But my favorite part of diving was the exploration. So I did a lot of diving in Portugal, in Africa, and it was not the best. But you would see manta rays and stingrays and sharks. Some of the sharks were worrisome in Mozambique. They had a lot of bull sharks, and those are quite dangerous, just like in Florida.
One of the things I've always been really taken about in diving is the colors. The colors are so vibrant and bright. I mean, you just can't imagine that nature can paint such a beautiful palette.
Yeah, so though I can tell you something about that. This was our Yambu in Saudi Arabia. We'd get a boat and go a few miles out to the outer reef. They break the surface, but no one goes there. And it's exactly as you just mentioned. You hit the water and you see all this. It feels like an aquarium. And all the colors are vibrant and the water is crystal clear. You lose color as you go deep, but you don't have to go deep, right? It's just incredible to see something like that.
What about the Azores? You've done a lot of diving out. You're Portuguese, right? Mm-hmm. So you've done a lot of diving in the Azores. Maybe tell us a little bit about
my favorite place to dive.
Yeah, because?
Because it's wild. We spend hours in places where no one knows you're at, right? You're totally far away from everything and everybody. You can count on yourself and your partner. I got a taste for the Azores because of my son. spends the summers there. So we'd go out, best times of my life, we'd go out and explore the coast, explore the caves, do a lot of spearfishing. And it's just a wild place. We do a lot of cave diving down there. The chambers maybe, you know, the size of this building. I was going to say the size of this room, but yeah. And out of those chambers, there's more tunnels. And then there's above water caves that you go into. So for me, it's a very special place. I like, gives me immense pleasure to get, you know, people that go there on vacation and spend their days at the beach and put them on a dinghy and take them to explore those caves. You know.
And how deep are the caves?
They're not very deep. Well, inside those tunnels, in many of them you have air, others you don't, but they go maybe 30 feet down. Mm. Then there's other caves that are much deeper that we explore with much more care.
Have you ever had any close calls? Because I think of cave diving as one of the most dangerous things you can do in diving.
No. I mean, I've gotten stuck on, that was very uncomfortable.
Stuck on a reef?
On a little tunnel. You know, my tank got stuck and it startles you for a while and kind of have to come back.
It's all about staying calm, right? That's the biggest thing. It's not stuck
yes.
or hyperventilating.
Yes. I've had close calls, but never on a cave.
I've hyperventilated underwater, and you watch your valve like it just makes you breathe more. You know, so maybe you don't want to go cave diving with Greg Carroll.
Perhaps it'll be fun.
Shall I name you as my life insurance recipient before we go? Okay, so where else? Azores, Red Sea, Gulf of Oman? You dived in the Gulf of Oman, right?
Never.
Okay.
Never. But I dove out of the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
Also very, very nice. Out of the eastern province of Saudi Arabia with rent, or convince some fishermen to take us to some...
Charter's a nice, expensive word for rented.
Yeah, and this had nothing to do with expensive or fancy, but great diving, awesome diving. Out of some deserted islands, many turtles and sharks and whale sharks, dolphins, big dolphins, turtles, I said that. Yeah, much fun.
Are you able to, do you feel like you communicate and you can, like when you're connected, how do you connect with these fish? When you're swimming among them, are they like, who is this guy with scuba gear?
I don't feel I'm connecting. What I feel is that I can observe, because of the spearfishing, right? A fish is a fish. And if I notice that a fish knows when you're hunting or when you're observing. It's very clear to me when I'm out there with a spear gun and I look at a fish, it takes off. If I'm there with a tank and I just look at the fish, it comes close. So fish can sense some things about us. And it's a technique that some people use as they get close to big sharks, like tiger sharks or white sharks. There are people that specialize in diving with those animals, and they actually confront them and push them to the side, right? I'd like to try that. I think that I'm not advertising that someone should do that, but I think that will work.
You ever like go down with your spear gun and have a shark be like, bring it, man, come on.
No, I've seen sharks spearfishing, particularly in the Azores. Hammerheads would come in and try to get the fish, but I never had a problem with the shark.
And so any other places that you dive that you think are just really fabulous? Besides RPB?
Let's see. There are several places in the Azores, several places around Africa that are very, very nice. The Red Sea, the Persian, I mean, all these places that I've been to, for me, are special. Although my very favorite is the Azores.
So how did you start diving in Rancho Palos Verdes? Like, I don't think of RPV as a sort of a bastion of diving.
It was a natural thing for me. Right? I live here, I live by the water, I like to be in the water. So I started going down to, to the water and spearfishing with my son.
So you were shore diving?
Yeah, Yeah, I also have a boat that I use, but most of the time we just walk down the stairs and go catch some fish for dinner. And that evolved into other things. I mean, coming back at 1 o'clock in the morning with lobster and knocking at my neighbor's house.
Nobody knocked on my door with lobster at 1 o'clock in the morning. You would be welcome.
Yeah, be careful what you ask for. Right?
So okay, so you started swimming with the whales, which is really what we wanted to talk about tonight, is swimming with big fish. And how did this start?
Well, it started years ago. I mean, way before RPV. I dove with whales out of the Azores, and with not whales, but whale sharks out of the Middle East. But here, it was, a function of being out there in the boat. I started diving with the dolphins. You kind of intercept the band, and you get into the water. Anywhere from 3 to 10 miles out of PV. That's where they usually are. And they come over you, and you film them. I started filming recently. I've been out there with blue whales and fin whales and gray whales, and I wasn't even taking photographs. And somebody said, you ought to start filming these things, and I did.
And what are they like? What do you notice a difference between how species act around you?
No, most of the times they just go by you, right? It's very rare when they hang around. Sometimes the dolphins will stop for a minute and continue. The whales are usually in motion. There have been a couple times when whales got very close, but for most of the time they just keep going.
And are you filming them every time you're out there?
No, but I have filmed a substantial amount of footage. I'm not a filmmaker, right? So I brought the little video today that I made for my little granddaughter, right?
We're honored.
Well, no, I apologize in advance. I'm not a filmmaker, so it's a very amateurish type film.
And how do you drive the boat and then you dive in, or you have a chase driver, or how does it work?
So I usually take somebody on the boat. Actually, that's a very good question, because the most important thing when you're doing something like this is to have someone that can control the boat and not run you over if things go bad, get nervous and...
Why would things go bad? Because they're driving while you're coming up?
Well, if something doesn't go right. I'm out there, I'm trying to find a big great white to film.
A great white or a
great
big,
white?
A great white.
So if I need to get out of the water, I need somebody to come fast, pick me up, and not run me over. Right?
And what do you do? Because the ocean can be hard to find somebody unless.
Well, no, they always whoever is with me knows where I'm at. I mean, I've been out there with a rope around my ankle because I was alone in the boat.
Really? So you were connected to the boat?
Yeah.
What could go wrong there?
What could go wrong, right? That's what I
How do you get back in the boat?
It's easy. It's a rigid inflatable boat. So you just...
When you're 007, you weigh nothing like you. I'd like to see you pull me up onto that boat.
No, there's ways.
Better get the winch ready for that.
Put a cookie on one side.
Yeah. Depends on what else is in the water with you. You might just jump in.
Yeah. Have you ever had any close calls out there? Or are you talking about swimming with great whites?
I speak from experience.
I never had any problems with fish. My close calls have been in the water because of other reasons, almost drowning and stuff like that. But not related to the marine life.
I'm sure you've had some close calls. You spend that kind of time in the water, you're going to have some bad stuff happen.
The close calls I had were related to people's bad choices. So there have been situations where people decided to go into the water where they shouldn't, where I wouldn't have gone, and they got into trouble, and I went to get them, and this has happened more than a couple of times.
You once said something funny to me about dying, and I said, I bet you're one of those guys that if you died scuba diving, you'd think that was a great thing, and that's not what you thought. Maybe you could share that.
I'll be thinking I shouldn't have come here today. I'll be doing everything I can to get, back from the water, from whatever I'm doing.
You're not one of those guys that think it would be great if you died in a cave.
No, God. No one can ever say about me that he died doing what he likes. I'm not going to.
So any advice for people, who want to begin scuba diving and about where do they start and how to take advantage of this jungle, as you refer to it, that we have in our backyard?
So it's quite easy, right? I mean, nowadays there are diving schools everywhere. Someone should take a proper course and get a few dives under their belt before they get, it's a progressive thing, do 3 feet, do 6 feet, do 9 feet.
But wait a minute, they should start out free diving first. They shouldn't just jump into a scuba, yeah?
No, nowadays people can, diving is very easy, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you are an okay swimmer, they'll teach you how to dive. Mm-hmm. But it's simple type diving. If you go into an intricate type situation like cave diving or wreck diving, you should be trained for it. Deep diving, I don't do very deep diving, or I don't dive
with nitrous or anything like that.
I only dive with air, because I've never been trained to dive with nitrox. I do some things that people consider to be a little extreme, but I'm very conservative about the way I do it. So I learn what I'm doing first. Mm-hmm. I think that the best way to observe marine life in the channel is without scuba, right? Because you go out to deep water, so doing scuba diving is not going to help you. And if you can reach a certain depth, just free diving or snorkeling, and see the dolphins pass by you, or being close to a whale, it's mind-blowing, right? It's incredible.
What is it like? What does it feel like to watch a school bus type size fish swim by you? I mean, I have to think that must be pretty awesome.
It is, but it's not more awesome than watching dolphins pass by you, mm-hmm. or any other type of animal like a moonfish, for instance. I mean, I just love it all. Yeah, some of my best diving has been close to cliffs in the shore with the water looking like a swimming pool with all the little baby fish of many colors swimming around, right? It just amazes me.
Where would you like to go diving next?
I'd like to go, so I'm actually planning to go to Jordan and be on a liveaboard for about a week, just to relax.
A liveaboard, so you'll be out deep in the ocean and diving different, like, reefs?
Yeah, but not very deep in the ocean, right? They follow the coast mm-hmm. of the Red Sea. Jordan does not have a huge maritime area, but it's great diving. It's diving where a lot of people don't go, like Rosh Muhammad or Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Every turn you take, there's a couple divers. I prefer to be where nobody usually goes.
And I saw you had a pufferfish in there. You have to be very careful with pufferfish, right?
No, pufferfish are perfectly harmless. You cannot eat them. If you eat them, and you can die. But and they have to be prepared by this Japanese connoisseur of poison. But if you get close to one, it's their defense. They puff up. Mm-hmm. That picture, you notice I had a lot of hair then.
Yes.
It was taken in 1986. That's the one. Yeah. Looking at it, and that's the horse collar buoyancy compensated.
Yeah, that is old school right there. That's.
Yeah. That went out of style.
You might have to donate that to the Adventurers Club if you still have it.
That was not mine, but if I did design one, so there was a time when I designed 3 types of BCs for myself.
That's right. I forgot about that. Tell me about that. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, so this was a time when you didn't have certain comforts in your equipment, like place for armpits, or crotch, or for females, the body, things were kind of a pipe that you get into, with shampoo or because it was very hard to get into. So I designed
Shampoo, so you needed a lubricant to get in.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So I designed my own wetsuits. I had them built in Taiwan and Japan.
Using neoprene?
It was in neoprene, but very good neoprene with designs for body parts to fit in, and very good nylon on the outside. They were very flexible, very easy to. I should have commercialized those things, but I didn't. But at the same time, I designed 3 types of BCDs. A horse collar. It was the worst BCD I've ever used.
Did you actually use it underwater?
Yeah. It was terrible.
And you lived through it? Okay.
Yeah, and I designed 2 vests. One that had a solid, backpack, and one strap, and one
For the tank.
for the tank, and one that had just a hard point and a hard point, and you could fold them because you didn't need the whole.
Nice.
And inside I had this. At the time, it was this innovative material, this velour type thing that repelled water. It was very soft, so you could actually roll the BCD, put it in a
A dry bag or whatever.
yeah, and travel with it. And he had 2 straps. I've never used a better BCD than that one.
You may be missing your calling.
Maybe I'm missing my car. Too late.
It's never too late at the Adventures Club. I don't know if you have any more thoughts, or should we see the video of...
Sure. I'll just give you a little introduction of why the video. My idea was to make a little video, very poorly made, for my granddaughter, so she could see what I was doing when she, was born. And that showed people and gave an awareness of the richness of the Catalina Channel, of everything that happens here that people don't see every day.
And where the Catalina Channel is between RPV and the Channel Islands?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's about 22 miles to Catalina and 22 more to San Clemente and then, Santa Barbara and so on. But these are the places where I spend my time, between here and Catalina. Do a lot of night diving in Catalina. But that was the idea, is so people would be aware of the richness that they have here, and they would become interested in what's going on and wanting to protect it.
Hopefully we start a movement tonight.
Yeah, well, with a flag.
Phoebe, can we see the video?
Thank you.
I mean, that's really incredible. I gotta say, like I had no idea like how much activity there is under the water in the jungle, as you say.
Every day. So I just yesterday I was looking at the biggest feeding frenzy I've ever seen out there. Just
From your house.
yeah, but incredible. Just dolphins jumping around, and when you approach it, that's what you see, right? You see all that mass of fish, which is like one organism moving together, somewhat like birds in the sky, and lots of parallels, right? And some days, if you're lucky, you can even see marlin go through it. So it's mesmerizing.
What does it sound like to hear the whales up close like that? I mean, I heard a little of the whale noise just from your GoPro.
Most of the whale sounds I've heard without seeing whales, and it's really nice, and you look around, hope against hope that a whale will show up. But in this particular case, the most difficult part of this video was teaching the dolphins to move with the music. They didn't want to cooperate.
Hey, what do we do about the oceans? The oceans seem like they're sort of an afterthought in so many ways. We hear about reefs dying in Australia.
Well, there's a lot of awareness about it in some organizations doing something about it. For instance, here in the port of LA, there's an organization called Alta Sea. I think we were talking about that, managed by an individual called Tammy Taminen, who is a very well-known environmentalist. And they are exploring the blue economy, and they are
the blue economy, drugs that can be created from things in the ocean, products.
For instance, or cultivating kelp.
Kelp, yeah.
Can be used
as a food
for
source.
Energy or food source.
Wave technology for the blue economy.
Yeah, or exploration, the development of autonomous technology, and the water drones. Very, very interesting things, and they're very well connected with the environment and saving the oceans. Eventually, like everyone already knows, if the ocean dies, we probably won't survive. The ocean will.
We die.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any ambiguity about that.
So we might disappear. The ocean will recover, right, at some point. I don't think that there's a point of non-recovery, right? Some species may disappear, but something will survive, right? So we'll be gone, and the ocean will thrive. And, some other civilization will screw it up.
Well, I'd love to see if there are any, if you don't mind, I'd love to see if there are any questions from our audience. Do we have somebody to take the mic around?
Where's the mic?
Where is the mic?
Just yell it out.
Sure.
On the Catalina side, which side do you prefer diving? Do you go north, south?
The side that faces us is more convenient, right? To go to the other side, you got to go all the way around. So I love both of them. The outer side is more wild. I would prefer to be there, but it's kind of a pain because you got to go around the whole island. So I can make it to the island with that little boat in about 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. But if I were to go all the way to the other side, it would probably be an hour and a half longer. And we often leave at night, come back around 3 o'clock in the morning. So, it would be more difficult, more cumbersome. So I primarily stay on this side of the island.
And you're night diving because the ocean is more alive at night?
Nah, because we're going after lobster.
Oh. Instead of just going to Whole Foods and buying it like I do.
Right.
How big is the motor on your boat?
90 horsepower.
Using a 90,
Yeah.
Have you thought about using a jet motor instead of propellers to be safer?
No. I would. I got nothing against jet engines, but I'm comfortable with this little boat.
How big is the boat, and how many people?
So the boat is 18 feet, and it carries a lot of weight. These rigid inflatable boats have a lot of flotation. So you could take, 7 people with gear comfortably. In fact, I've come back from Catalina with 5 people on the boat filled with camping equipment, and we towed about twice its size all the way back with some 9 people on it. So we looked like refugees. We did, truly.
The San Ignacio Lagoon down in Baja California is a refuge for whales.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity, by the way, Larry Stern, 1112, have you been down there?
I have not, and I'd love to go down there. So it's one of my targets for, you know, this side of the world.
I think we should go there. I want to get my son into scuba diving. I'm getting him scuba diving lessons. Sorry, son, if you're watching this right now, you've heard your Christmas present.
One of our members, Jim Dorsey, goes down there just about every year and takes a bunch of this.
Yeah, it's awesome, isn't it?
Oh, phenomenal.
Any other questions? Chaz in the back.
Is it Pablo?
Paulo.
Pablo, thank you.
But Pablo is okay.
Paolo.
I'm sorry, how do you say your name?
Paolo.
Paolo, okay, thank
That's
you.
the way I say it.
So I'd like to have you speak from the gray whale perspective for me, okay? I think a miracle happened. About 3 weeks ago, I'm on the sailboat. I'm on a race crew. Grant has been with us. And there was a whale watching boat off Dana Point. So we're on a 38-foot C&C sailboat, you know, doing our racing thing. And the skipper says, let's go look at the whales. So we hadn't put the sails up yet, so we motor over. And there's the whale watching boat. Usually they're very savvy where the dolphins and the whales are, right off Dana Point. And so we tool up to them, you know, going slowly, appropriately. And we don't see anything, right? Then we see some waterspouts. And then 2 gray whales that were as long as our boat. We're in a 38-foot boat. So these are 40-foot whales, right? Are under our boat. And they had come over to us. And so now, these 2 grays that are easily 40-foot long, and they had big barnacles, so they were not young whales, I'm guessing. And they were on the way, right, going up north to feed. So they hadn't fed yet, and they're checking us out. And they're playing with our bow, and they were 6 inches from the bow of the boat. These are, you know, they knew exactly what they were doing. And they stayed with us. Dolphins sometimes will play and then move on. They stayed with us for a half hour. So my question, I'm sorry to be long-winded, but it was just, I felt a sacred moment. You know, that here was a wild animal that was interacting, it seemed to be on purpose with us. And I thought, what would a wild animal, can you just open up a little bit, what was going on there? You know, and then they flipped over and then their bellies were toward us. And a friend of mine who was a horse person said that's a vulnerable position they were taking with us, right? So me just being a horny bachelor, I thought they wanted to have sex with us, but that's not true. But so can you just talk with them, I'm trying to be light because I'm so emotional. Can you just open up a little bit? What were they doing? Because they hadn't fed for a while, and they took time out to play with us. And I thought they gained something, or it was fun for them, or was it curiosity, or what?
So I'm speaking out of school because I'm not a trained oceanographer, marine biologist. But I've noticed over the years that mammals tend to be curious. And yes, it was a very lucky moment because, again, they don't usually stay around for too long. So if they stayed with you for a half hour, they were curious, perhaps something to do with the hull of the boat and the bow wave. That it's a displacement hull, so it pushes water in a different manner.
To my skipper, were
They could have been attracted to your skipper, or.
They wanted you to take the barnacles and take them off and scratch their bellies. Did you record it?
sex, okay, I
True. Did you record it?
Any other questions before we wrap up today?
I'm wondering, what are some ways that diving has transformed you as a person? Like maybe your personality or things you've learned about being human or transformed the way you approach life or approach other people or your relationships?
So, diving is something that has fascinated me since I was a little boy. I was a little kid watching Flipper, and the underwater footage just affected me somehow. For me, it's aside from the time when I'm with someone showing them something, it's something that takes me to another world where I'm not thinking of anything else. So I do a lot of solitary diving, but I love showing diving to other people, showing the things that I see. Just like when I read a book and it takes me to a different world and I'm away for a while. I always associated myself with the water. I like to be outside when it's raining. So I don't know if it transformed me or if it's just been part of me, yeah? And I'd much rather be in the water, in the middle of the channel, or against some rocky cliff, looking in the crevices, trying to find something, right? I'm fascinated by wrecks, and old wrecks in particular. And I have found some things, so I love that. But I'd rather do that than, being at a New Year's party with everybody jumping around.
Any other questions before we wrap up today's show? Paulo Ferro, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And to our friends and guests at home, I welcome you to come down to our 5,000 square foot museum and experience the Adventures Club for yourself. I say get off your ass and come down here and join us for the show. And I'd like to thank Phoebe Piper, who runs our AV. And most of all, I'd like to say to my son, I love you, buddy. See you soon.
Thank you.